This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. So fast to finger down. Dance tonight together. He'll have me while the singing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for October 19th, 2021. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling feed or our own dedicated podcast feed on all podcast platforms and applications. You can follow us on Twitter at Open Voice Gate. If you would like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the sponsor this podcast box and you can set up a one-time or recurring donation. No obligations whatsoever. But we'd like to thank all our previous donors. Also, that Red Circle page, if you're looking for the Open the Voice Gate dedicated RSS feed, it is on that Red Circle page as well. I was fooling around with that kind of stuff today, and I discovered that. But anyways, I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Iron Mike Spears, joined alongside my co-host and friend, Case Slow. In Case, we were hoping to get a result in Kobe Sambo Hall this weekend, and boy, did we get that result. But first off, how are you doing tonight, man?
Mike Spears, hello. Good to talk to you again. I am doing all right, all things considered. When I check in with my internal clock, things are going pretty well this week, so I can't really complain about that. And I have been buzzing all day about talking about this Dragongate extravaganza. There's so much to talk about today. Dragongate and Osaka Pro. So I am really in a very good mood right now.
You know, for first-time listeners, Osaka Pro, we kind of view as in the same family as Dragongate. Like, it's all part of the Luchares tree, just the branches split at a different direction, and there's a lot of Dragongate and Osaka Pro kind of continuity, so it's worth us getting into that. But this week, we have the huge Bravegate match that happened this Sunday, SB KENTo versus Funky Jacky Kamei for one last time before he changed his name. We'll talk about the rest of the double shot in Kobe Sambo Hall. We'll preview this weekend's doubleheader in across Fukuoka. And we'll touch on Sora Fujikawa's departure from the company. It seems like maybe from wrestling as well. But Case, on the marquee, they went into Kobe Sambo Hall. They went to this weekend deciding we're going to have a main event on night 2, SB KENTo versus the winner of the number 1 contenders Royal Sambo on the first night. It was my main man. It was Turtle-kun. It was Funky Jacky Kamei pulling off the biggest win of his career to date and then going in the next night against his generational peer, the guy who he debuted with on the same night almost 2 years ago, SB KENTo. And just like my off-the-top thoughts, this was the Kamei coming out party. This was really something where, like, we've readjusted our expectations with SB KENTo as we've seen his meteoric rise, Case. But I think after we're done talking about this match, we might want to talk about what do we see the future for now, Jacky Funky Kamei.
Yeah, this is as successful of a double shot weekend in elevating one single wrestler that I know of. I mean, I was trying to think earlier today if there was ever an ROH double shot during the Gabe era where somebody went from, we'll say mid-card to main event. Now, that's not exactly the exact case here for Funky Jacky Kamei, but someone that went from a guy on the roster to a made guy in some capacity. And I really don't know outside of, I mean, I guess you could say Morishima, maybe with the way Steen and Generico finally landed in the promotion, when they finally stuck the landing there, which would have been the Fifth Year Festival show in Philly when they wrestled the Briscoes in that great match. And then from there, they were booked pretty much throughout until they were signed by the WWE. I mean, there has been some really successful weekends where guys have gone from one spot to another in their career. I'm sure other promotions have done it as well, but this is such a massive success story for Dragongate booking, for Kamei, for the Bravegate scene, for SB Kento. Mike, we once again have to adjust our expectations for SB Kento, and we will get to that because there's literally so much that both of us have to say about this Bravegate match. But big picture thoughts on the weekend as a whole, these were two incredibly enjoyable Kobe Sambo Hall shows. Mike and I have had our battles with this venue in the past. There are times where these shows are dire. There are times where these shows are lifeless. I thought both of these shows, in particular night 2, but I even enjoyed night 1 all the way through, but both of these shows are worth sitting down and watching and consuming as if they were of a Korakuen Hall importance or an Osaka number 2 importance level. These are important shows. If you're following this promotion in any capacity, you really need to do yourself a favor and sit down and watch the big stuff from these shows. This was a slam dunk weekend for the promotion. And, I mean, we, at the beginning of the year when Dragongate was running a lot of double shots, we were constantly talking about, okay, who won the weekend? Who impressed us most? This is 1000% Kamei's weekend. He won this. My God, what a performance from him.
Yeah, and it's something where they've been very kind of specific on, like touching on the recent history in Kobe Sambo Hall. I kind of had something snap into my head while I was watching these shows, guys, that I wanted to throw past you. With the closure of Hakata Starlings in 2019, their final match in the promotion, or in the building for the promotion, was Pac defending the Dreamgate against KZ. They had to readjust what their monthly loop was, because for a long time it was, okay, Korakuen Hall, that's our Tokyo show, that's a big show. Hakata Starlings, we treat Hakata Starlings like it's a big venue for us. It constantly had championship matches throughout the years, and it was something that I would comfortably say probably number 2. There are a lot of like historic Dragongate matches that happened at Hakata Starlings. It shut down in 2019, and along the same time, we started noticing, or Case maybe started noticing, I wasn't bugging him late at night more and more about this, but Kobe Sambo Hall, which is the hometown of Dragongate for new listeners. Kobe, they are a Kobe Hyogo Prefecture company. This is their hometown. This is why they always will run a Kobe show each month regardless. Those shows were dry as heck, and then after Hakata Starlings kind of closed up, I think that's where like the correlation is. It's kind of taken over Hakata Starling's position as the number 2 building monthly in the promotion. Do you think I'm off base in saying that?
I think that's certainly a factor. I think Sambo is really more of an overall gauge of how healthy this promotion is, because the times where we really struggled in this building, the times where, because we weren't recording weekly just because my schedule didn't allow it, where I was not watching these cards start to finish, quite frankly. I would pop in after intermission, see what I need to see, and move on. Now, at this point, I'm on track to watch 100% of what makes tape this year. Last year, I watched 99% of what made tape because we're weekly now, and I not only need to watch these things, but I like watching these things to completion at this point. But in late 2016 into 2017, and especially 2018, I think this building showed the lack of depth on this roster, because this is the home base. You expect people to show up. You expect to draw well here. But because of the size of the building and because of the way their tour schedule works, just from watching this promotion for as long as I have, I get the impression that Dragongate doesn't love to give away important matches in this building. It's not like Sambo Hall has a rich history of title matches, so you're relying on matches 1 through 6 to carry this card more often than not. And what we saw in 2017, when the promotion was in a weird spot and Yamato's Dreamgate run wasn't satisfying our needs, and you had rookies that were talented but weren't quite there yet, into 2018 with the OWE split, was I think you saw the holes in this roster finally being exposed. This promotion that, people talk all the time about how, a guy can go from being in a Dreamgate match one night to the opening 6-man tag on the next night, and it's not a demotion. It's just the way the booking of this promotion works. And I feel like we saw that system be exposed. We had just dire, dreadful undercard matches, and then main event matches in this building that weren't necessarily as heated as they could have been, because it didn't seem like those guys were as over as they were now. So to a degree, I think this has taken the place of Hakata Starlanes, because you're right, this is a title match. We've certainly seen an elevation of importance in this building throughout the past year and a half, really since the back half of the generational feud. I think these Kobe shows have been really entertaining. Now, Hakata's irreplaceable. And it's funny you mentioned this. I didn't know you were going to talk about this, but I was talking to somebody about this over the weekend, where if you look at the importance of that Hakata, building in Fukuoka, they were getting yearly Dreamgate matches, and that's certainly something that's not happening at the current Fukuoka building, and that's something that's not happening here. But I do think it's the closest Dragongate has come to replacing that non-Tokyo, non-Osaka stop on their schedule in terms of a building that they can give an important match to, and it doesn't feel like it's going to waste there.
Yeah, and it's something that they've really have shown over the past few months, especially with SB KENTo, like the willingness to have him main event these buildings as Bravegate champion or fighting for the Bravegate. And it kind of opens up the playbook a little bit more, because you're able to do stuff like, okay, we have 2 nights here. Let's do a Battle Royal the first night, and then have the winner of the Battle Royal face SB KENTo the second night. So if anything, like the fact that like the attendance was this good, and attendance was very strong for both these nights, tells you that their effort in making Sambo show matters, and the fact that SB KENTo has slowly but surely, within the first few years of his career, become a reliable draw in this company in a way that, like, as we're talking about reimagining expectations like this, it's something that, I mean, the fact that usually with like Dragongate, they would do like a 2-night tournament here. They would do like they'd have a sponsor come in, they'd do a trios tournament, and they would just have a tournament for the sake of having a tournament as a draw here. But doing this here provides a lot more life, and it's something that after the Ishida and Okuda Bravegate runs, it's showing something completely different with this title. Something that they would have random Bravegate shots on other shows, but nothing like as reliable as, I mean, the fact of the matter is, SB KENTo has not defended this belt in Tokyo Korakuen Hall, or has not defended it at a Big 5 show, and it's something that they're now showing like, hey, we could use this belt now and this guy to main event these shows, whereas in the past they weren't able to do so.
It's such a fascinating title run, and I alluded to this a few weeks ago, but it really hit home after this weekend, given the fact that the entire weekend was built around the Open the Bravegate Championship. It was way more emphasized than Yamato versus Hulk, any of the even like KZ returned on these shows, and that was like the 4th or 5th most important thing that happened. And that is someone who headlined Kobe World this year. And no disrespect to KZ, but he felt like an afterthought, because these shows were built entirely around the Open the Bravegate Championship. And although Japan is healing and it looks like they're going to be able to figure their stuff out by the end of the year, it is such a bummer that any part of this run, any part of this title reign has happened in limited capacity settings, because while it's not quite the apples to apples comparison, it's not quite the IWGP Heavyweight Championship and the IWGP Intercontinental Championship, this is the most important the Bravegate title has felt in years. I mean, I guess since the Dragon Kid versus Eita stuff, because that headlined a lot of shows, I personally was not into any of that. That had borderline go-away heat with me. So I have to go back to 2015. I have to go back to the Tozawa Bravegate run, where this title really felt like a 1B to the Dreamgate's 1A, in not just a secondary title. And to your point, SB KENTo headlined Nagoya, he headlined Osaka, and now he's headlined Kobe, and we know how important Osaka and Kobe are just on the surface of this promotion. Nagoya, a very important town, a lot of wrestlers that have come from there, SB KENTo being one of them, and they have one of their Big 5 shows of the year in Nagoya every year. those are crucial towns that SB Kento is now carrying on his back with this Bravegate run, and he is 21 years old. It is a remarkable run, and ultimately what will likely just be a footnote in his career.
The really sickening thing that got me about this, when you talk about like the age about this, is so these two guys, Kamei and Kento, debuted in the same on the same match on the same show at the tail end of 2019, and they're doing this both under the age of 22. They are both doing this having had very few matches in front of live audiences, or y'all get what I'm saying. But it's just the gumption of doing this and taking someone like Funky Jacky Kamei, who was the young lost post of Natural Vibes. That was a natural position for him, especially considering he had the shoulder issues, and where his position is, it's a lot more of a natural kind of Dragongate progression in comparison to SB Kento, who they just poured rocket fuel on, and they try to see how high he's going to fly. So the fact that they did this for Kamei, who, it's worth noting, at least in my impression case, he was the most over person on both of these shows. Like, it was something that I was like constantly noting, was like, oh, Kamei is getting a response, where like the undercards, it wasn't like it was unheated, and especially for the Yamato and Hulk stuff, they did enough stuff really there to kind of add a little bit of spice to it. But I mean, Kamei was made in a way that, like, you have people in this company on these shows who've been wrestling for close to 30 years, and he is the most over person here, and it's against someone that just is his classmate, and it's sickening in a way.
I talked to someone that was in the building for both of these shows. They attended both nights in Kobe, and they said that the Battle Royal on the first night and the Bravegate title match on the second night, those are the hottest crowds this person has been involved with since the start of COVID. They noted that actually the Battle Royal had more vocal calls than the Bravegate match, with the funny anecdote being that he felt like people were more respectful for the title match. They didn't want to necessarily ruin that by breaking COVID protocol. The Battle Royal, they went a little loose for. But yeah, this is the most heated stuff we've had in almost 2 years in this building, and it's done by people of this age. You've always been the Kamei guy on this show. You know, they debuted together at the end of 2019. I immediately latched onto then Kento Kobune, now SB Kento. I said, this guy is going to be future star. Doesn't suffice. That is not a grandiose enough term for the future that I think he's going to have. You have always latched on to Kamei. My take on him has always been, he will one day be a phenomenal Open the Bravegate champion. He's someone that is very presentable, very charismatic, fits the Dragongate image, and his peak is the Open the Bravegate championship. My opinions on that have not changed. I think we saw the best version of him this weekend, and I hope that we get to see more of this Kamei in the future. Have your opinions on his ceiling changed at all after this Bravegate match?
Well, I had pretty similar expectations as you. Mine have completely changed. So and it was something that struck me after the match, when he was basically, for 50 minutes, he was doing the bulk of a talking in a go home segment, where he was making jokes about, like, they got my name wrong in the theme, but I'm nice and I'm a young guy, so I can't be presumptive of pop star, so I'm going to change my name to that. And it was cracking everyone up. And it was something I was like, all right, Kamei, you've got the charisma to make this work. And the person he was most responding to was KZ. And I don't think that he's going to be like 2021 KZ in a way, but I could see him stringing together like enough wins, because he has the underdog that really, like, that was the thing that took me back in this match, was how powerful his selling was in this match and how well he had the command of the audience with that. I could see him being a one-off Dreamgate challenger at this point. Like, I think that you build him up in the right way and you let him, like, I mean, that's going to be the interesting thing. As everything is opening up, does not appear to be another state of emergency in Japan. And we'll see things like it's going to be a month-by-month thing. I've done some research into it. Probably by the end of this year, it will be, I would say, mostly normal, or what we'd expect pre-COVID new normal. And I think we would be able to see January, really, things get to how people would expect. But with like a crowd that's fully behind him, I think that he's someone that, like, I don't think he'll be a Dreamgate champion, but I think he's someone that, like, you could build up for like a potentially best case universe, build up for like a champion gate Dreamgate shot at this point.
I'm not quite there, mainly because I can't even justify Jason Lee in that position, and I think Lee is not only literally bigger, but I think a little bit more talented than Kamei, and I don't even know if I see Lee in that position at any point in his career, so I'm not quite there. So I can't begrudge you for that. I certainly think Kamei has the talent, but I don't necessarily see him at that point there. As for SB Kento, and I've talked about how since his debut, I think he's the second coming of Yamato. I've raved about how he can brawl, he can tell a story, he can chain wrestle. He once again in this Kamei match, he did his double leg takedown, which I don't know why I get so excited for him doing the most basic of amateur wrestling moves, but I really do. This guy can do it all. Jay said on our podcast 3 months ago, if this guy was 3 inches taller, he would already be Open the Dreamgate champion. That sent shivers down my spine when he said it. And yet I think we once again need to move the goalpost back for SB Kento, because this is a man who's 21 years old. He's a full year younger than me. And when it comes to his future in this promotion, after watching him this weekend, I think the adequate way to gauge his success in the future, and Mike, you can tell me if I'm off base, but I think the adequate way to gauge his success going forward is at what point does he join the likes of Eita, Susumu, Doi, and Yoshino as the most decorated wrestlers in Dragon Gate history. Those are guys that have won the Dream Gate, the Brave Gate, the Twin Gate, the Triangle Gate. All of those guys that I listed are also King of Gate and Summer Adventure Tag League winners. Now, SB Kento's not going to have a chance to win the Summer Adventure Tag League unless things change, but if he can beat Eita, who was 28 years old when he won the Dream Gate belt after he had been Brave Gate champion, after numerous reigns as Twin Gate champion, after a run as Triangle Gate champion, that is the new gauge now, okay? Eita was 28 when he did it. Doi was 28 when he did it. Yoshino was a week before his 30th birthday when he accomplished it. Susumu was a little bit more complicated because he won the Brave Gate belt at 41 years old. But if you really give him the benefit of the doubt and stretch this back to Toryumon, where he was not only an NWA World Welterweight champion, but also a UWA Trios champion, and then you take his Dream Gate run in 2006 and his Twin Gate run in 2008, he was 30 years old when he accomplished all of those tasks, those 4 main titles. This is now how we have to look at SB Kento. Can he win every title in this promotion and possibly King of Gate before the age of 28? And I see no reason as of right now why that isn't a 100% yes, that's what he's going to do.
Oh, I think I think the over-under is age 25. I think he has 4 years to do this. He's already has Triangle Gate. He has Brave Gate right now. So he just needs Twin, Dream, and King of Gate. 25. Yeah, that's my over-under case. Are you taking the over or the under?
I'll take the under. He could win King of Gate next year and I wouldn't bat an eye. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a matter of, okay, when is he going to be, his version of down cycling is going to be, okay, when is he down cycled to a point where he can win the Twin Gate titles on a pay-per-view and then lose them back in Osaka or whatever. And then it's just when is he going to be Dream Gate champion? Because it is so obviously a win, not if. And now, we have to look at this from, again, will he do this before the age of 25, which is absurd to think about with anybody else. But with him, it's like, yeah, of course it's going to happen. I mean, I'm of course taking the under there.
It's something that you look at him, and I mean, we've talked about the checklist case. This was him doing a bully championship match, whereas the match against Kagetora was all right, this is him hometown pulling it off there. When the match against Keisuke Ikuda last month, and actually that was last month, and Osaka #2 for the vacant title, that was seeing you could plug him in and he could be adaptable. This was him basically doing pardon my French, king shit basically for 15 minutes, and then Kamei being able to have the crowd in the palm of his hands and charging up, firing back, and just also in a way showing a chemistry that you would hope for two guys who, this is the next BB Hulk versus Shingo Takagi. This is the next generational feud, and they've made it very clear that that's what's going to be right now. But he was able to bully around his peer for 23 minutes. And I mean, this is the longest match of Takedo Kamei's career. I'm sorry, Jacky Funky Kamei. It's the longest match of his career, and he pulled it off with this. And, you have to look at the person who's the champion. You have to look at someone who's been in these high-stakes scenarios already, and you give him another checkmark gold star. SB KENto did it yet again.
I'm glad you made the Shingo versus Hulk comparison, because I wasn't totally confident in that, because obviously in that comparison, SB KENto fits the Shingo bill pretty well. I wasn't quite confident enough to make that by myself, but I'm glad you said that, because this match really reminded me of the first ever Shingo versus Hulk singles match, which was King of Gate 2005. I think it was December 26th in Korakuen Hall, and that was, especially for Hulk, that was really his first single showcase. Shingo, by that point, had already challenged for the Dreamgate belt. He had been in huge six-man tags with, Taka Michinoku and the like. But that was a moment where you went, oh, I knew these guys were good. I didn't know they were this good. I didn't know the Dragongate Dojo was pumping out talent like this. And over the past 16 years, the guys that have come through this promotion and have gone on to dominate the wrestling world, they speak for themselves. But this was the first time that we've had simply two guys from the class of 2020, as we've dubbed it. They debuted at the end of 2019, but this core class by themselves out there. And you go, oh man, I mean, these guys are better than I thought they were. I had really high expectations for this match, and they completely surpassed them. I did not expect to give the star rating that I gave it coming into this weekend. It was a better match than I somehow anticipated. And the one other thing that I'll mention from the person that was in the building, I thought they made a really interesting note about how ever since Yoshino retired, things have felt pretty tentative in this promotion. Nobody's really been sure who's going to step up, where the next big thing is going to come from. And this person said, at least being in the building, it felt like that Bravegate match was a really big test for the promotion of, can we draw with the young guys? Are they talented enough for this position? And they pass with flying colors. And that is the biggest seal of approval you can give. These guys, this match, this weekend, this promotion going forward, this match felt like a sigh of relief from everybody involved. Like, oh, okay, we're going to be okay. Things are going to be fine. The future is all right with us.
And I mean, that's something that, like, Case knows I'm doing this thing. I talked about this a little bit last week. I'm doing like an overall Japan coming out of COVID, just my opinion on like the futures and things happening on the EE Patreon. And like the big question about Dragongate is always going to be, are the young guys going to take the baton? And this was a match that before this, I've not recorded this one segment yet on this show. I was like, this is going to be the big question, because you look at the roster, and yes, it's the most talented roster arguably in the world under the age of 30. But then you look at like, okay, who are the people who are really drawing in this company? It's like, oh, a lot of it are the people that have been there for 23 years at this point. And as we've seen with Yoshino retiring, there's been a noticeable issue with drawing it, and it's something that like really most felt at Korakuen when Dragongate was the most consistent company running Korakuen Hall for like 16 months of COVID. They were the only ones that were consistently selling it out, and now they're having a little bit of issues selling it out without Yoshino. But you'd anticipate that we're going to start seeing more and more people from the original first generation the Dragon system eventually will like to start taking their steps back. And then then the question is the young generation ready? Like, we've seen the Trueborn generation, the former Big Six, take the ball when needed, but now we're basically down to Yamato, whatever is left of BB Hulk and Naruki Doi. So we have to look onwards, we have to look more forward. And we already saw that Shun Skywalker did a great job in business-wise as Dreamgate champion. Then you look at who's going to be next up after him, and you see the fact that, two guys who can't drink or one of them might be able to drink in the United States, the other one can't, were able to draw one of their strongest Kobe Sambo Hall crowds in months. And you have to go like, all right, maybe that's not as much of a worry anymore. Or I don't think that this could be a DEFCON 1 situation. It's a big step forward, and I had that sigh of relief when watching this match. Like, all right, things are okay. And congratulations So Funky Jacky Kamei, you made the Notebook finally. It took you almost 2 years, but you finally have had a 4-star plus match in my books, and it was something that I can't be happier. It's probably going to be my small show match of the year for Dragongate this year, and it just was truly exceptional.
Last point I want to make before we break down the match itself, not necessarily move by move, but there's stuff in this match that I really want to talk about. It's crazy to think that Shun Skywalker is 25 and Ben K is not much older, and there's already a generation below them that might not be ready to go and roam free, but you have a certain level of security, even with the departure of Sora Fujikawa, which again we'll talk about a little bit later on in the show. And it is a bummer for me on a personal level, just because I loved him, but also it's a bummer because we're already seeing the fragmentation of that class of 2020. And I said in May of 2020 when Kakuta and when Fujikawa debuted, I said this is one of the best debut matches I've ever seen, because you had two guys that were at this point 5 months into their career against two guys in their very first match. It was that tag match on an empty arena King of Gate show. It was Kabune and Kamei against Kakuta and Fujikawa. I said not all four of these guys are going to pan out. It's just statistically impossible that these four guys are all going to hit. But if you can get one, or best case scenario two, to hit some sort of level as a star, then this is an unmitigated success. We've lost Fujikawa. Kakuta's out, at least for the rest of the year, from my understanding. And Kamei really stepped up to the plate here, because SB Kento's there. I haven't had to worry about him pretty much since that match. But everybody else, has fallen by the wayside. They've gotten hurt. They're leaving the promotion. Kamei had a real rough start in Natural Vibes. I really wasn't sure what his future was going to look like for the first few months of this year once he returned from his injury, because you remember he got taken out as well. Once he returned, I was just like, man, that spark is gone. What we saw last year is just not there, and he shut me up, and he proved me wrong, and I feel much better about the class of 2020 exiting this weekend than I did coming into it.
Absolutely. It's something that for a while, you can make the argument it was SB Kento and other guys. Now, Funky Jacky Kamei, Jacky Funky Kamei, as well, to start referring to him as, he's made his claim. Like, for a while, you're absolutely right. Like, he had the shoulder injury right as it looked like he was getting put in his first unit. He didn't come back very well. But, 23 minutes, going 23 minutes with SB Kento and not in a complete beatdown 23 minutes, that's truly exceptional.
Yeah, this was a goddamn professional wrestling match. It felt... let me throw it to this way. Did it feel more universal than your standard Dragon Gate match? Somebody that, fair or not, tends to fade this style, isn't their thing. Do you think this has a more universal appeal than, say, even, my Dragon Gate match of the year, which is Skywalker versus Ishida from March?
I think that this is a match that you could drop in a lot of places, and it would be a great match. It's a match that it's not a Dragon System match fully. The first time that I think I've ever seen Kamei fly was in this match. Like, you think about it, Kamei does like a top rope drop kick, and that's it from flying. You wouldn't think that from a guy who might be 5'3", and then SB Kento does not wrestle the stereotypical old Dragon Gate style as well. And really, this was a match that was really built on, I'm not going to let you just treat me like I'm a walkover and Kamei stance. And there probably was, in a 23-minute match, 6 minutes of chopping back and forth or thereabout, or elbow strikes and the like there. And that's after like a significant portion that kept on going back to, where like the story, the first half of the match was basically SB Kento big brothering Funky Jacky Kamei, and then spinning, and then Kamei firing back, and then they were having those tests of strength, and then randomly Funky Jacky Kamei does a tornado splash to the outside, which I don't even know if the Natural Vibes guys were ready for that, because the reaction that some of them showed on the outside. And just kind of from there went into just a solid match, like just from start to finish. I would say you could drop this match anywhere.
The chop battle was fascinating. That seems like it's probably the loudest reaction I've heard for anything Dragon Gate related, outside of the unit disbands match from last year, that RED versus Toryumon match. This seems it's the loudest reactions that I can remember from a crowd. That Kobashi versus Sasaki-esque chop battle from SB Kento and Jacky Funky Kamei, just like we all anticipated these guys, that would be the match they emulate, as Kobashi versus Sasaki. That's a callback to their Prime Zone matches, and I don't know if they ever wrestled on Next. I think it was just Prime Zone, where they would chop the shit out of each other, and it was a bit of a callback to that. I thought everybody at ringside was tremendous. This was a match where, in a weird way, I came away from this match impressed with Genki Horiguchi, because he was seconding Kamei, and it seemed like every time there was a chance for Horiguchi to add something just by hitting the apron or by making some noise, he was there to do it. He was just as important to this match as anybody else was, and that chop battle really set things in motion for what I thought was a brilliant closing stretch. Kamei adding that Torbellino into the crucifix is only going to benefit him in the future, and he did it in this match, and SB Kento immediately countered that pinning attempt and gave him kind of a flash pin attempt of his own, which Kamei kicked out of. But that spot right there, it felt major league. It felt, obviously Yoshino-esque, which in the closing stretch of a title match, that is the type of vibe you want to give off. And then in the end, Kamei fought, and he fought, and he fought, and he just wasn't good enough, and he tapped out to the SB shooter. Mike, I don't know if you noticed on Twitter, but I am so fascinated by the outpouring of support that this match has from other members of the roster. Masaki Mochizuki, who was not on this show, mind you, Mochizuki worked the main event of a Noah show, and then that night was on the Dragongate network watching and tweeting about this match, which I think says more about Masaki Mochizuki than anything else, that this man headlined a Noah show and then went home and caught up on the Dragongate show that he wasn't on. He was tweeting his praises for this. Naruki Doi said this was a great match. Kagatora and UT put this over publicly. Super Shisa said this was his match of 2021, his match of the year. That is, to me, this is a promotion that's obviously a family, and we know these guys are super tight knit, but I don't remember a time where the promotion has been this forward about putting over a single match like this before. I mean, to me, having guys like Doi and Shisa and Mochizuki tweet about this match is such a giant seal of approval.
Well, I think Shisa decided to work the show so he could watch this match. I mean, this is a guy who's taking it easy in his later years and popping up on the show. It's like, oh, Shisa's on the show. Okay, that's interesting. And he's not like and usually he would be like in a battle royal and he'd do like two things and get out of there. But like he was like in a full on match, and then hearing that he thought this match, he was like, okay, that makes sense. Shisa wanted to work the show so he could watch this match. And I mean, I'm going to rewatch as soon as they get the full Infinity cut, or if they put up a director's cut of this match, I'm gonna go back and rewatch it. Like, this is going to be a match that it's something that you're gonna that listeners should keep in mind when the 5 years down the road, where maybe we have a Twin Gate team with Kamei in it and a team with Kento Kabune in it, and you see them cross paths there, or in a, just like you're mentioning about Shingo Takagi and BB Hulk, like their King of Gate match. Like, this is a building point match, and I think the fact that, of course, Masaki Mochizuki, he goes to the convenience store, he gets himself a couple of beers, he gets back, and he's like, all right, I'm booting up the network, I got to see what the young kids are up to. And he's the one person that, like, if you told me he didn't watch the match live, I'd be a little disappointed. Like, just confirms my suspicions about Masaki Mochizuki being one of the smartest people in wrestling history.
I made a list of what I thought were the 5 most memorable Open the Brave Gate Championship matches in history. Now, again, it's skewed. I don't have any of the Dragon Kid versus Eita stuff on here because, again, I wasn't really into that program. But when I think about the Brave Gate belt, I think the 5 matches that define it to me are Yoshino versus Dragon Kid from November 2008, Naoki Tanizaki versus Kagatora from August of 2009, Pac versus Ricochet, November 19th, 2011. Hard to believe we are coming up on 10 years of that match. Flamita versus Susumu from 2014. Flamita is still getting booked off of that match. And then KZ versus Tozawa from February 28th, 2015. I would have this at number 6 on my list. I think no matter what happens in the future, SB Kento could start doing MMA tomorrow and leave this promotion and be done with wrestling for good. Kamei could get hurt tomorrow. God willing, that doesn't happen and never wrestle again. I think no matter what, this is one of the most important Brave Gate matches we've ever seen.
And it's something that you brought up in this Night of Synchronicity. You brought up that Tanayan versus Kagetora match. If that's from Hakata Star Lanes. So like that's why like having this match in this building is so important. You know, I mean, it's something that I think going forward now people will look at like, oh, there's going to be a Brave Gate shot or SB Kento is going to be in a main event match or Jacky from Kamei was a main event match. Like, oh yeah, I remember that match that happened on October 17th, 2021. I don't want to miss this. And I think that that's such a strong point there. Interesting that list that you did not have any of the Okuda versus Ishida matches from last year.
No, because my take on those was always I consistently enjoyed that feud. I thought pretty much every step along the way was great, but I don't know if I went over 4 stars flat on any of those matches. I thought all of their singles matches were great, but none stood out as the definitive match of that series. I know Rich from the Flagship, I think he really loved the Gate of Destiny one. I think he went 5 stars on. I know you were a little higher on those. I thought they were tremendous matches, but in the landscape of the Brave Gate title, I haven't given my star rating yet, but I think this smoked those matches.
That's fair. The moment in the match that I think that I wanted to bring up that really like told that like whatever fears I had, and like we were like, this is the thing they should have done last week, and it happened. So I was pleased about this, but like settling in, this is the part in the match that really like settled in was when SB Kento had Kamei and the STF, and Kamei like wrenched his body, and it just was like such a incredible like example of the STF looking really awesome. And it's something that for me, I was like, oh, Kamei has a very good self-awareness, and it was able to like to tap in on that. And then from that moment on, this match was like just phenomenal. I mean, like the counters we saw, I mean, like, you know how Kamei was using his version of the acid drop as like a big like near fall thing. The fact that like SB Kento kind of was like, no, I'm not, and countered right out of it. And then, you know, the closing stretch, like one of the things that's so excited for me as someone that loves watching wrestlers develop is when you put them into their first ever big match. And this was Kamei's first ever big match, like what kind of stuff they add to their arsenal. And like the Casadora bomb near fall towards the end was sick, and it just was all something that I was like, all right, like my big takeaway other than like the SB Kendo stuff we said and Kamei step forward was Kamei has a awareness of himself as a wrestler that you don't always see out of someone who's under 2 years in the business. Did you get that opinion at all?
Yeah, I was again, I spent so much time talking about SB Kento, but yeah, I was really impressed with, I guess what you could label as just the all-around performance of Kamei in this match. I mean, if you're parachuting into this just because it got positive praise wherever and you're not really familiar with these guys, I don't think you would know that either of these men are 2 years into the business. I mean, Kamei, and that's always been my thing with him, is I think he's immensely talented. He's very good for his experience level, but ultimately, there are times where he wrestles like a guy that is 18 months, 2 years into his career. And this was him really recalibrating those thoughts. This was him taking a step up, and a step that, quite honestly, like I said, I knew this match was going to be good. I did not expect it to be this good. He took a step up that I did not think he was ready for, and I was super impressed by that.
Yeah, no, it's something that, it was really remarkable. Just so if people are listening to the show going like, hey, I want to check this out, it will be up on the Dragongate network until the 24th. So you still got plenty of time, especially by the time this thing gets up. You basically have the rest of the week to watch this match. It is something real special. You actually, for once, have me a little bit hesitant about what I have down as my star rating case.
Well, I watched this match twice, and
Same.
I gave it a rating the first time around, and then I watched it again this afternoon, and I said, you know what? This match is even better than I thought it was, and we have landed, for me, 4.5 stars.
You see, I was at 4 and 3/8 basically, but yeah, 4.5. Like I had it down as 4.25 question mark in my notebook, and then when I rewatched it, I was just like, man, this is better than I thought. And that's why I want to rewatch it with like the full production, right? Like just to see like how well it comes across that way, because it just was astounding. This is a match that very rarely is there a match I immediately want to go back and rewatch. This was one of those.
The only 2 matches from this promotion this year that I can say were definitively better were Skywalker versus KZ from Kobe World and Skywalker versus Ishida from Champion Gate. I think this is on the same level as KZ versus Minoura from Korakuen Hall in June, Skywalker versus Yamato from Speedstar Final, and Skywalker versus Sakamoto from Memorial Gate in Wakayama. So at worst, this is a top 5, top 6 match for me, and a promotion where, including this match, I have 38 matches in Dragongate this year at 4 stars or above. So this is in the upper percentile. This is in a very good year for this promotion. This is one of the best matches.
I think right now would slot in probably 6 through 10 in my top 10 list at this point. I don't keep up as much on my Rex list. I don't have like my rolling top 10 going, but I was flipping through my notebook as you were saying this, and really, outside of like Shun Skywalker title matches, which I'll admit I was probably more into than a lot of other people, and at least emotionally, a Masato Yoshino's retirement match, this is a top 10 match, and it's going to be hard for it to be displaced this year to me.
Yeah, if it makes my top 10 at the end of the year, and of course Noah really threw a wrench in that, because Noah's had a few matches lately that I really liked, and I was not necessarily anticipating on including them in my top 10 ballot this year. There's some Shingo stuff that's gotta get in there as well. But my top 10 list is gonna be Dragongate and AEW centric. If this makes my top 10, it'll be my number 10, which is always a vanity pick for me. It's typically whatever Dragongate match I liked the most that I didn't include in 1 through 9, but just one that left an impression on me. So it would not shock me if come end of the year, when I'm filling out my blurbs for Voices of Wrestling match of the year, that this is going to be my number 10 match, and that I will gleefully write about it once again.
Yeah, that's probably it. I don't think there's a match that is as sentimental for me this year, and that's also me being a day one Kamei fan. So, I mean, that's my own personal thing. It would probably either be that or Yoshino's retirement match, because there's not really been necessarily a Mimi match for me to toss at number 10. So I think this is pretty much lock that in there. Did you have any other big thoughts about the match before we start talking about other things this week?
God, no, I think I've exhausted all my thoughts on this. It is one of the best matches this year. Go watch it if you haven't seen it, and then I will be anxiously awaiting the November Dragongate Network schedule to see if we get a director's cut of this, and if we do, to get it to watch that as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Well, support for Open the Voice Gate this week comes from HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip the trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. And in case, I know that you're a busy man right now. I'm a busy man right now. Fall can be super hectic, but HelloFresh's recipes save time you'd otherwise use spent meal prepping, grocery shopping, and shopping, so you could focus on getting back into a new routine and spending quality time with the family. For me, I have to sit through enough University of Miami bad football games this year that being able to go just toss things into a skillet or toss things in the oven, having something ready during halftime makes my life a whole lot easier.
Mike, it is cuffing season. And as you know, that means I am back on the dating apps. I am courting women. I am hanging out with ex-girlfriends. Maybe not the most recent one, but there's definitely some exes in the city that I'm seeing. And that means that I need activities for these ladies. And you know me, I have a very eclectic taste in women. I like them a little bit more on the alternative side. So I love the fact that HelloFresh offers 50 menu and market items to choose from, including vegetarian meals and calorie smart choices. I need that when I have, let's say, a woman in my apartment that's not like most girls, someone that the mainstream doesn't really understand. Maybe she walks to the beat of her own drum, And because of that, maybe she's a Morrissey fan. Maybe she doesn't eat meat. I need those vegetarian options. The good news is with HelloFresh, there's something for everyone to enjoy with recipes designed and tested by professional chefs. In the same way that we star rate SB Kento versus Funky Jacky Kamei, HelloFresh has professional chefs star rating these meals, and you better believe you're not getting anything sent to your kitchen that is below 4.5 stars, a match of the year contender quality meal with every single HelloFresh meal.
That's right. So if you're interested in this, you go to hellofresh.com/VOW14 and use VOW14 as your code for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. That is VOW14 at hellofresh.com/VOW14 for 14 free meals and free shipping. And that is the best way you can support the show. You go there, you sign up for 14 meals, and you can use HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. In case that was not all that we had in this doubleheader in Kobe. There was a lot of stuff that kind of, in my opinion, just like off the top, was chalk, wasn't bad, filled the time, got to see something new maybe, and then moved along here. But there were some other big moments I would say came out of this weekend in Kobe. Would you just want to touch on the big things and we just run down results from here?
Let's do that. Let's do that.
All right, so you mentioned this up top. KZ made his return from his ankle injury on night 1, match 4. He teamed with Natural Vibes against a veteran Army plus Problem Dragon team. That as soon as we saw that Mondai Ryu was in this match case, we were like, well, we know what's going to happen here. And that was exactly what happened here as he beat Problem Dragon with a running elbow smash in 13 minutes and 43 seconds. And you wouldn't think that this guy just had like surgery to remove plates from his feet,
Second best match of the weekend for me. I almost went 4 stars on this, and it's weird to think that the bulk of this match, or at the very least a very heated finishing stretch, involved KZ going mano-y-mano against Problem Dragon. That certainly sounds like something from 2012, not 2021. But I mean, to your point, what's the difference between this KZ and the KZ of July of this year? Like, he was the same guy. It doesn't make any sense.
You see, I kind of like that because both these guys are classmates. They're Dragongate Next guys. So, like, we were talking about Hulk and Shingo and Kamei and SBK here. So, on a lot more minor scale, and these two guys in 2012, you mentioned that in 2012, their fortunes greatly diverged at that point. So, I like that a bit. It was something that was kind of interesting to me, and it's something that we always have our eye on. Like the fact of how much like Naruki Doi was a passenger in this match. Like there were a couple people on these shows that I noted, okay, this person tagged in once, this person tagged in twice. Doi was taking it easy this weekend.
I am so fascinated by Doi. I mean, I really have no idea what they're doing with him. I still think, we're going to come on this show one weekend, and for all we know, it could be after this weekend in Fukuoka, and we're going to have to start the show going, oh my God, can you believe what Naruki Doi just did? I still think his next move is going to be a really big move, but he is very much checked out right now. And, I don't necessarily have an issue with that because like I talked about at the beginning of the show, this roster is at a point right now where there's enough depth and it feels like enough guys are over to where they're not leaning on Doi and they're not relying on him to once again be this heavily featured act. But it's weird for Doi to be in the back seat right now. That's just something that since his turn in 2005, since he helped form Blood Generation, that really hasn't been his MO. And right now he's just in the back seat hanging out. And it's very interesting to see.
And it's something like the only other time that he really took that step back was before his first turn of Masato Yoshino, after he dropped the Dragongate and had that huge run. They kind of pulled him back for a little bit, which was more understandably so. Now it's just like, all right, what's up with Doi? And I think that I was going to bring up one point that kind of works in confluence with this. The RED dissension has continued as Hyo on microphone gave Ada a 0%. Eita said, you could come say that to my face. And it seems like that RED, as they're like kind of going full force ahead into like big match for Die Inferno next month. We have both of their we have the new Triangle Gate Challenger set up for Gate of Destiny. it seems like that RED, like when we talk about Doi making a big move, it seems like that the RED big move may be sooner rather than later, or they're just teasing everything's going to be okay.
If you're someone that's invested in the stories of this promotion, if you care about the week to week and what's going to happen, do not forget this Hyo promo where he, again, big brain over here, gave Eita a rating of 0. That has Franz Ferdinand vibes written all over it. That is the powder keg that is going to ultimately explode RED. It's going to be the first shot in what will be many, many, many shots as we head into the new year and beyond. Don't forget that promo. That was done very intentionally.
And it's something that when you talk about RED, it's worth talking about. BB Hulk and Yamato, they were, of course, at each other's throats, both in the semi-main event on Saturday. And I think it was also the semi-main event on Sunday. Yeah, no, they were semi-main eventing both nights here. And the big story case about this was, I thought both matches, were pretty much what I expected good out of all these out of these groups. But the big thing was on the 17th, we had the reemergence for the first time, basically since he turned face and created Dia Hearts. We had the reemergence of Darkside Hulk came out in Kobe Sambo Hall.
Mike, you can take the floor here. I will briefly give my thoughts on the match afterwards, but what is the historical significance of Darkside Hulk?
So Darkside Hulk was something that was introduced very early on in his career, really pretty much soon after he was turned on by Shingo Takagi for the first time at the end of New Hazard in 2008. When World 1 was formed, this changed, that turn changed Hulk's character, because before that, very much not dissimilar to Takeda. I'm gonna keep on calling him Takeda because we've talked about him so much, but very similar to Jacky Funky Kamei, where he's very cheerful, very happy, dancing. He had the dancers. He was very much stylized as this. His nickname was Pure or Snow. Literally that was his nickname, and that was how he was booked there. But after he was turned on by Hulk or by Shingo Takagi, we started to see first up against. Now here's a fun piece of trivia case. Who was the first person that we got to see Darkseid / Killer / Black Hulk against?
It was some offshoot Gamma character, wasn't it?
Actually, it was Azuchi Kanda beforehand.
Oh boy, this is a match that I have either not seen or blocked out of my memory.
Yeah, so the idea is that Darkside Hulk is the dark side of his persona. He's someone that has a lot of his career and his training and his basis in Hayabusa, and Hayabusa of course had multiple personas. And the idea about Darkside Hulk is it's the vicious dark side, and it's something that when it came out in 2008, it was actually a legitimate shock, because this was a guy that was out there dancing all the time. He was always dressed in either white or silver. He was very much just as babyface as one can be in Dragongate. And you see this guy basically showing up in the gear that we saw on Sunday. He wears the black pants, he has the black skin tight body tank top on top of it, spray paints across his arms, and comes out chugging wine. And it would reemerge a couple times against Gamma, like you brought up there. The Gamma character was called Gamma Dio, and that was one of the worst matches in a long time when that happened. And then when he turned in 2011 in the middle of Junction 3 and Blood Warriors, the turn was so significant because it was basically the first big night of this feud. What was previously all the former other units in the company either were disbanded or allied themselves into Junction 3, and it landed with both Shingo Takagi, who was in Kamikaze, and I think World 1 was dissolved before this, and then it had BB Hulk coming in as well. And the first night that they were supposed to be teaming together, the night they revealed Junction 3 as the team unit, it was going to be a big 5-on-5 tag team match. And suddenly, during the entrance, we saw Black Hulk came out. It was Naoki Tanizaki, which, of course, when Shingo Takagi saw this, he flipped out because he knew that meant that something was going on there. And then behind him was BB Hulk, not dressed up as Black Hulk, but kind of embodying Black Hulk and starting his heel run there, and gave something that we've said several times, the most vicious beatdown that we've seen in Dragongate history.
Yeah, so, my thoughts on Darkside Hulk, I don't I don't necessarily care about like the militant gothic black Darkseid Hulk that we saw here. Doesn't move my needle one way or another. I'm not really put off by it. I don't get too excited about it. To your point, the thing you just mentioned, his initial heel turn into Blood Warriors and then him as a lead part of Mad Blanky, I adore. I mean, Hulk's run in Blood Warriors is that's a really fun 6-month run from June 2011 through December of that year, where I thought he came across like a killer. I think the Mochizuki match that headlined World 2011 is one of the best Dreamgate matches of all time. I think it's incredibly, incredibly underrated, and Hulk is right there along Mochizuki with every single step of the way. So, yeah, you know, this is a wrinkle that I didn't see coming. It's, again, and I wish I had a more compelling take, but it's just, I don't, it's BB Hulk, and I'm out of compelling takes with BB Hulk.
And it's something that, like, basically that heel run was kind of like the impression, and everyone kind of was led to believe was that was basically Darkseid Hulk took over for those years. He turned face in 2014, and when he won the Dead or Alive cage match, and then he was on the championship road and formed Dia Hearts. And since then, we really did not see any Darkseid Hulk since 2014. The only other occurrence actually was when he was injured and he came back and to help Yamato to escape the Dead or Alive cage. So, and then he had a couple more appearances under the Darkseid Hulk gimmick when he was coming back from that injury, because they wanted to make it kind of like an exhibition-y kind of thing, and that was more flat. This is me editorializing. It was more flattering for Hulk to dress up in that costume than what was the Tribe Vanguard costume until this weekend when he came out as Darkseid Hulk. And it's something that will be interesting to track to see if this is going to be like a full-on thing now, or this was just like a one-night thing to throw off Yamato.
Yeah, I honestly thought Hulk moved around really well in this match. I still, and to me, rightfully so, have my reservations about him in a long Dreamgate setting. But like I said last week, the build to this has made sense to me. Like, there's clear progression along the way, and Darkseid Hulk coming out here, while again, it doesn't necessarily excite me, it also doesn't really turn me off. It's just another step in what has been a very logical, albeit not exactly thrilling story. The one thing with Hulk, the one critique I have as he embarks on this Dreamgate challenge, and this is the heavy-hitting analysis that you get from Open the Voice Gate and nobody else, that spot he's doing where he's suplexing a guy over the top rope and then kind of falling over into what I guess is supposed to be a brain buster on the floor, that spot sucks. He has to stop doing that.
It's an insane spot for someone who's had as many severe injuries as he has to be doing that spot. Like, remember when he came back and he did like an EVO on the apron, and we were like, that's insane. He probably, like, we're no safety police here. He should probably not do that. This is like insane, and it doesn't look good.
No, it looks like shit. And I thought on the last Cork and Hall show, I thought Jay did a pretty good job trying to sell this move like it was a cool thing for him to be doing, but that has got to stop. And I'm afraid they're going to end up building like a large chunk of the Dreamgate match around this move, because I guess in theory, at least from the explanation Jay gave, it's supposed to be a brain buster to the floor, but it just looks like he's falling over. I mean, it's a really bad looking spot, to a point that I feel like I needed to mention it here to it's bad. It's the one real flaw in this Hulk Yamato thing, is that spot has plagued every single match now.
And it's something that, like, when Yamato was doing that Rise to Champion, we saw like him kind of tap back, bring back that 2010 feeling and be a little bit more vicious. And you're just like, okay, there's other ways they could be accomplishing this, not in a move that looks bad, and with someone that eventually I'll stop saying like, this is a guy who probably can't do this, but he probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, no, it's not a good looking spot. I did really like that era of Hulk in 2017 and 2018, where he had put on some weight and he had gone through some injuries, but he was really into taking really big and really dumb spots, because I thought there was a good enough payoff there. I still think that it was a tag match. It was Dangerous Gate 2018. It was Yamato and Hulk against Mochizuki and Skywalker for the Twin Gate belts.
Yes.
In that match, I'm trying to think, and again, I'm not a deathmatch guy, so I can't really speak to fear on that level. I don't remember a match where I've been as nervous watching it, because this is when Shun was still really out of control, and you never really knew what was coming next with him. And then you obviously have Mochizuki, who at the very least is going to kick you as hard as humanly possible. And then Yamato was taking big spots, and Hulk was taking a bunch of big, dumb, stupid bumps in that match. And I don't bite my nails, but I felt like a cartoon character chewing back and forth on my fingers like a corn on the cob, because I was really afraid someone was going to get really badly hurt in that match. And it was fun that BB Hulk played along to that, but again, the payoff was worth it. This spot that he's doing, this brainbuster thing, sucks. He needs to stop doing it.
Yeah, it's just it's also, as a complete aside, it's a wonder that Shun never really crashed and burned that badly. You know, now that we have enough distance and we think that he flies a little bit, but not like how he was trying back then. Really lucked out that he never seriously got hurt during that time period.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, he's definitely he's screwed up some things where he's been diving inside the ring, but I don't think, and knock on wood, it keeps up this way. I don't really think he's had a hard splat on the floor when he's diving to the outside, and that is good. He needs to keep that streak up.
Yeah, no, it's something that it kind of just struck me as like he never really got hurt there. So that was aside there. What other big things from Kobe Sambo Hall did you want to touch on?
We had Dark Side Hulk. We had KZ's return. The one other thing I want to be sure to mention, well, two actually, real quick. Super Shisa and UT wrestled in the opener. Mike, you have the floor.
It was sick. It was awesome. Yeah. It was the opener to night 2 on the 17th, and it was something that it was really like when I list off these names, you're like, okay, this is insane. So you had everyone in Natural Vibes other than Kamei, because Kamei was in the main event. So it was a 10-man tag. The other side, Kota Minoru, Jason Lee. You might think to yourself, oh, it's gonna be Masquerade versus Natural Vibes. That's tight. I'm here for it. No, because they were teaming with Super Shisa, Konamawa Ichikawa, and Yosuke San Maria. And Shimizu won because Konamawa Ichikawa did not want to get a King Press, and he later got the King Press. But the first 5 minutes of this match was all just UT and Super Shisa grappling. And I was like, all right, this is sick. Why is Ichikawa here?
I loved this match. This was really fun. It's rare you get a 10-man tag in Dragongate, and I like that this one just had no stakes to it whatsoever. This was, we talked about building units a few weeks ago, and shame on us for not putting Lee, Minoru, Maria, Ichikawa, and Super Shisa together, because I loved the way they worked together. And like Mike said, you had UT and Shisa just kind of kicking ass in the opening portions of this match, so I thought that was super fun. And then before we move on, we do have to talk about the Ahashi Brothers and their 2 matches that they had this weekend.
Yeah, so the Ahashi Brothers, they had a tag match on the first night. It was against Don Fuji and Takashi Yoshida. And then they were in a trios match with Strong Machine J against Fuji, Kanda, and Kondo. I have kind of competing thoughts here, Case. I thought that the match on Saturday was, I don't want to say it was a bad performance. It just was not a very lively performance to me. And it was something that, I kind of took note of. I was like, oh, is this a step back, or is this a settling down, or is this just a crowd that really only wanted to see the Bravegate stuff there? But then I really enjoyed this, the 6-man tag on the 17th, especially Strong Machine J has been such a outlier right now, but seeing him with people that, has a lot of similarities with second generation wrestlers. And I talked about this on the unit episode. I want to get them in a unit together. And I thought that Strong Machine J looked good. And I thought that the Ahashi Brothers across the weekend, it was a good weekend from them. It was not great weekend, but it was a solid weekend from them in my books.
In both matches, I thought in particular the chemistry between Don Fuji and Riki Hashi continues to grow. And I mentioned last week I'd really like to see at some point down the road what a Riki versus Doi singles match would look like. At this point, we know what a Ricky versus Don Fuji singles match would look like, and I think he's ready for that opportunity. I would really like to see that sooner rather than later, because there was a moment in that 6-man tag on the second night where Fuji was slapping him in the face, just open-handed palm strikes, and Ricky was returning with chops, which I thought was really interesting, that they wouldn't just go, back and forth, slap each other in the face, that Fuji was being outwardly disrespectful and Ricky was coming back with just your standard pro wrestling chop, which I thought created an interesting dynamic there. Ishin showed a little bit of chain wrestling here, and he did it with Yasushi Kanda on the second night, which I just wasn't, I don't know, I wasn't anticipating Kanda necessarily being the mat technician in this match. We've watched this guy, people have watched this guy wrestle for 23 years now, and at no point have I ever been, when I'm watching old footage, been like, man, Yasushi Kanda could grapple. But I kind of thought that in this match, which is a nice change of pace. Again, almost 25 years into this man's career. And like you mentioned, I thought Strong Machine J had a nice outing here. I thought the Ahashi brothers looked better than him, but I thought Strong Machine J looked good.
Yeah, it's something that, like, in the Summer Adventure Technique League, we would not be offering a bid to Yasushi Kanda. He would have to wrestle his way in. And the way you wrestle your way into the Summer Adventure Technique League is that you have a 5-round exhibition grappling match with Super Shisa. So he would have to perform well there to get, like, an at-large bid. But that was well.
If you go to the Red Circle Open the Voice Gate page, there is a button to donate money to us. And if you pay us enough money, Mike and I can book a grappling tournament to our ideal specifications. Just remember that as you're listening to this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who our outsiders in the Summer Adventure Technique League would be, but I feel like maybe we got to see what Virus is up to in Mexico.
I'm not fucking booking Virus. I've never watched a Virus match and been like, yeah, this was good. Let's settle down. I'll book Old Man Negro Casas, who was a brawler, before I book Virus. All right, it's maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we should see other people.
Maybe we shouldn't just have outsiders and just keep it to the roster.
I was thinking like Lee Moriarty would be my pick. You went Virus. Oh God,
I want to see some good Yave.
Well, don't pick Virus then.
He's good at it. He's better than Negro Navarro, I would say.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mike, you're at this point you're better than Negro Navarro. Nothing pisses me off more than reading some 4.5 star Negro Navarro match where it's like this dude is standing here letting somebody wring his arm for 20 minutes. Like, I just can't handle that. I haven't seen the Jonathan Gresham Negro Navarro match yet. If it's good, let me know. I haven't heard crickets about it, and those are two guys that people really like to overrate, so I'm assuming it was disappointing even for their standards. I feel like when I was way more online than I am now, I would see a Virus match pop up. Like Alex Shelley used to put him over like crazy, and then I would watch a Virus match. I was like, God, this sucks. This is just not any good. And I like Alex Shelley. I want to like what he likes, and this is not it.
Hey, I think that the Mini Maestro is great. I just, maybe Virus is not for you. Maybe Virus is not for you.
No, I know he's not. That's not a maybe. It's a definite. I'm not a fan.
That's fair. The other thing I wanted to touch on real quick, and it's just real quick, on the Kobe shows, where we got 2 futures matches. The one on Sunday was Takumi Hayakawa versus Takuma Fujiwara. I mean, that was very much like we've seen a lot of those 2 at this point. But on Saturday, we got Shoya Sato and Ryu Fuda, who I think, at least for me, I feel like this was the first time seeing both of them. Were you able to check these out, and do you have any thoughts about those 2 guys in their first appearance?
Yeah, these are guys that we've known about, and I know they've worked at least one prior show because I had seen pictures of them in their gear, but I had not seen them actually work. And I know that there are people out there that are really into Sato, that think he could really be something special. I was actually asked by somebody specifically if I had watched that Sato match yet, which at that point I had not. Now I have. Look, they already have more guys. Like, it doesn't make any sense. We just got through the Ahashis. We have Fujiwara and Hayakawa that are still in the pipeline, and now there's 2 more, and it's just this never-ending cycle. There's not a lot you could tell from this match in terms of necessarily what stood out. I like both their body types, I liked their looks, and get it on the ground floor. This is literally the first time they have made tape in their career. Give it a watch, and 5 years from now, you can brag about watching them wrestle dark matches.
Yeah, the only thing I'd really say about Sato and Fuda that I could get out of that was these are guys who are bigger, like not just like size wise, but they're taller than the rest of them, which is something that we spent 30 minutes talking about SB Kento and Jacky Funky Kamei, who are 2 guys under 5'6". So having some taller guys in the pipeline was kind of nice to see. That was like my only like big takeaway. Like that, it very much kind of felt like Baby's first Dragon Gate match to me, even though this was an exhibition.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it.
And then running down the rest of the results for Kobe Sambo Hall, on the 16th opened with Masquerade, Skywalker, Minoura, and Daya versus Hio, Diamante, and Inferno of RED. It was Hio with his schoolboy in 12 minutes there over Daya. Match 2 was Dragongate Izushi Kondo versus Eita and SB Kento. SBK won in 9 minutes with the SB shooter on Kanda. Match 3 was Fuji and Yoshida versus the Ahashi brothers, and it was Yoshida pinning Ishin with a pineapple bomber. The KZ return match, we've talked about it, was KZ getting the fall over Problem Dragon with a running elbow smash. It was High End versus RED semi-main event. It was Yamato and Bensuke versus BB Hulk, Kai, and Kaito Ishida. And Benkei got the win clean over Ishida with the spear. The main event, of course, was the number 1 contender Battle Royal. It was Kakatora, UT, Yosuke San Maria, Funky Jacky Kamei, as he was known then, Jason Lee, Punch Tominaga, and Sachihoko Boy. And it was Kamei pinning UT, his Young Vibes partner, with the Torbolino Crucifix. That show will be up until the 23rd. Running through the 17th, there was the 10-man tag we were talking about. Shisa, Ichikawa, Maria, and Minno Lee versus Natural Vibes. And it was Shimizu being credited with a submission on Ichikawa when Ichikawa did not want to eat the King Press. Match 2 was Narugi Doi, Ryo Saito, Punch Tominaga, and Ho Ho Lun versus Sachi, Kakatora, Takashi Yoshida, and Problem Dragon. Kakatora pen PT with the Ikitosen in 10 minutes. Then it was the Fuji Kondo match versus the Ahashi Brothers and Strong Machine J we talked about before. Match 4 was Masquerade, Skywalker, Daya, and Estrella versus Eita, Diamante, and Daya Inferno. It was Daya winning by a pinfall, and it was a rolling prawn hold out of the Inferno attempt for that. And the semi-main event of that show was High End. I almost called them Natural Vibes. High End, Yamato, Dragon Kid, and Bensuke versus BB Hulk, Kai, Kaito Shida, and Hio. Dragon Kid won with the Bible on Hio, which led to a Triangle Gate challenge from Dragon Kid, Keisuke Okuda, and Benkei for Gate Destiny against the champions, Hio, Kaito Shida, and Eita. And of course, the main event of that show was the Open the Brave Gate title match, and SB Kento makes his first successful defense with the SB shooter over Funky Jacky Kamei. In the post-match, Funky Jacky Kamei noted that his theme, as I mentioned earlier, was his name was in the wrong order entering the theme, and because he's a nice guy and he's way too young to make this kind of thing for him to change it, he adapted his name. He now will be Jacky Funky Kamei going forward, and everyone was really amused by the fact that his initials are now JFK.
Yeah, so to make this real simple, I think the Battle Royal on the first night and the main event on the second night are essential viewing, because that Battle Royal, we didn't spend a ton of time on it. A legitimately good match that was disguised as a Battle Royal, but way above the average affair that you get in that type of match. Typically, if you have time, I recommend the KZ return match on the first night and the Ahashi Brothers 6-man tag on the second.
Yeah, those were all the highlights I'd really have of the weekend there. I mean, the only notebook match was the Brave Gate match, but the matches that Case mentioned really are the ones worth getting into while you have time. And before the shows, the double shot in Hakata Star Lanes. Trying to see if they actually have it on the Facebook page or I have to go to Twitter. Okay, I do have it on Facebook. They'll be there the 24th. They are doing their day-night doubleheader there. Case, I know you've seen the cards as well. Were there any big takeaways you had before I run down the cards?
Not before, but I have thoughts after.
Okay, so we have the Dragongate Challenge team of Dragon Kid, Benkei, and Keisuke Okuda opening up the afternoon show against Natural Vibes, Yokosuka, Shimizu, and JFK. We have a 6-man tag team match. This is a wild 6-man tag team match given where things are in the promotion right now. Problem Dragon, Punch Tominaga, Yosuke Samaria versus Maraha Isapa and Ho Ho Loon. Then we have Don Fuji and Naruki Doi versus the Ahashi Brothers, KZ and UT versus Kaito Ishida and Kai, Yamato and Kagatora versus BB Hulk and Hyo. In the main event, it is Masquerade versus RED. Shun Skywalker, Kota Minoura, Jason Lee, and Dragon Dia versus Eita, SB Kento, and Dia Inferno. Moving on to the evening show, we have a match 0, Ho Ho Loon versus Problem Dragon. Opens up proper with Natural Vibes, KZ, Genki Horiguchi, and UT versus Ryo Saito and Kota Minoura and Jason Lee, who are just like, they are the fill-in whenever you need a tag team to join a match with unaffiliated people. You're tossing in Kota Minoura and Jason Lee. Match 2, the Naruki Doi and Benkei versus Don Fuji and JFK. That's wild. We have the Open the Twin Gate champion team of Susumu Yokosuka and King Shimizu versus the Ahashi Brothers on night 2 or on show 2 as well. Punch Tominaga and Yosuke Samaria versus Kaito Ishida and SB Kento in a What Are We Doing Here match. We have the semi-main event, Shun Skywalker and Dragon Dia versus Eita and Dia Inferno. And the main event of the second show and across Fukuoka on the 24th is BB Hulk and Kai and Diamante and Hyo of RED versus high-end Yamato, Dragon Kid, Kakator, and Keisuke Okuda. These are some, I have to say, this show 2 card case kind of blew my mind when I started reading what they have stacked up towards the end of it.
Yeah, the daytime show, the first shot of this day night doubleheader, Fuji and Doi versus the Ahashi is great. KZ and UT versus Kai and Ishida, that sounds like fun. Rest of the card, who cares? I'm sure that the main event, it's RED versus Masquerade. That'll be great. I shouldn't blow past that. The night show, I am into everything on this card. Main event, but that's just because it's high end and I'm pretty cold on them right now. Opening match, KZ Horiguchi and UT versus Saito Minoura and Lee. That sounds like a ton of fun. Doi and Benkei versus Fuji and Jacky Funky Kamei. That's gonna kill me, by the way. Jacky Funky Kamei is gonna be so hard to get used to. That match is gonna be awesome.
Just go JFK.
The
I have
Ahashi
offered.
versus.
Okay,
Oh, please, are you going to give him a tour of the Dallas Metroplex area?
I have offered. He'd get the Mike Spears Metroplex reality tour if he needs it, just in case. Just make sure that someone of JFK has a good experience in Dallas.
Court Bauer, just remember, I live in Chicago. If you bring the Dragongate crew to Chicago, I will show them a good time. Mike Spears can do the same. He will go back to Dallas if you book them there, or obviously Spears territory.
Only Kamei.
Only Kamei.
This is a one-person tour.
See, I'm like, what? Yo wants to go to an improv show? All right, but let's get on the train. Let's go. A whole roster, whatever you guys need. I got you. I'm your whipping boy. I'm your mark that weekend. Just let me know, Court Bauer. The Ahashis versus Natural Vibes. That's a fresh match. We haven't seen that. I'm sure that'll be great. Do not sleep, Mike. And you were that condescending tone in your voice. I heard it, and I'm disappointed in you. Punch Tominaga and Yosuke Santa Maria versus Kaito Ishida and SB Kento. I swear to God, I'm excited to watch that match. I don't know what that match is going to be, but I'm excited to watch that match.
Well, to me, that screams either Punch Tominaga or Yosuke Santa Maria is getting a fall on SB Kento to set up that Brave Gate match at Gate of Destiny.
And boy, let's hope it's Maria and not Punch.
Yeah.
Because Maria versus SB Kento...
Yeah, for sure.
That will be a very good match. I mean, we've seen Maria rise to the occasion before. That I'm into.
Mm-hmm. But
and
Punch Tominaga...
match 5. Oh, yeah, Punch and SB Kento. I mean, come on now. Punch had a fucking Brave Gate match a Brave Gate match already this year. We're not doing that again. He wrestled Okuda, Mike. Think about how weird that Okuda reign was in hindsight. He wrestled Keisuke Okuda in like a featured open, like a months-long build. Multiple months to get to Okuda versus Punch in a Brave Gate match.
It was such a weird run. Such a weird title run. I mean, Hyo getting a title match in Osaka. That's going to be a Brave Gate match case. That's going to be a Brave Gate run case in 5 years. We're going to come back and revisit this run just because of just like how it planned out, because it was weird.
It was bizarre. I mean, that Hyo match I thought was really good too, but it was not. It was just weird that I thought they nailed everything up to Okuda winning the belt, and then he won the belt, and they were like, Punch, I guess. I mean, let's see what he can do. And it's like, well, you guys were onto something there with UT. I don't know why we need to go to Punch after that. That was a bizarre run. But what's not bizarre is Skywalker and Daya versus Eita and Daya Inferno. That match is going to whip ass. And then the main event, I'm sure will be fine. Again, I'm cold on high end. I don't. Hulk, Kai, Diamante, and Hyo is not exactly the strongest RED foursome, but even that I'm sure will be fine. That is on paper. That is as good of a Fukuoka card as we've had in a very long time.
Yeah, maybe the King of Gate one, but that's not fair. Or like when they did like a Twin Gate tournament, but like just for like a standard card, it is not a card that I would think I'd be booking, but I gotta tell you, match 2, Doi and Benkei versus Fuji and Kamei. Remember, Fuji and Kamei looked like that they could have like really started something, like when Don Fuji wanted to join Natural Vibes and all of that. Like we're getting a glimpse into that reality, and it's nice to see the Ahashi Brothers, move on from the rookie beaters and now like get to face more of the full roster. Like I am fascinated by King Shimizu Nation. I think that will be really, really interesting. And yeah, I mean, the way I look at this day night case is, all right, mom and dad are at home for show 1, so we're all going to be on our good behavior. But show 2, it's nighttime. They're going to go watch that new James Bond movie. They're getting dinner in a movie. Mom and dad aren't home. We're throwing a party here, and we are inviting a right before intermission a Punch Tomonaga match to the household.
Have you seen that new James Bond movie?
I haven't. I'm not as... For someone who in my life was dominated by movies for so long, I don't watch a whole lot of movies now. You know what the last movie I saw was?
What's that?
Mortal Kombat.
I didn't know that was a movie.
It was like 90 minutes and it was fun. The last movie I saw in theaters, however, was Death of Stalin. So like that gives you a sense of my movie watching. I watch a lot of documentaries and cooking shows and then trash.
Yeah, I've never seen a James Bond movie. I don't plan on seeing them. They sound terrible, quite frankly. If it's not a Judd Apatow comedy or a gut-wrenching documentary, I typically have no interest. My ideal movie, to put it in perspective, when The Wrong Missy came out, starring David Spade and Lauren Lapkus, I think I've watched that movie 5 times. That is as much fun as I can possibly have watching a movie. That is right around 90 minutes, because the thing is, movies are too long. Like, it's just a fucking pain to sit through, because I gotta, focus for... It took me a week and a half to sit down and watch the new Sopranos movie, which I thought was good, but I was just like, oh, God, I'm gonna have to focus on something, and I don't want to do that. But you throw me a dumb comedy, ideally Kevin James is in the mix. If not him, then again, Spade is a great substitute. Then I'm thoroughly entertained.
I have not realized that our two senses of comedy diverge so much that you're wanting to watch a Kevin James movie in 2021.
I watched, were you aware that Kevin James had a laugh track sitcom on Netflix recently?
No, but it doesn't surprise me. He's the person I expected out of.
It was called The Crew, and it was about Kevin James running a NASCAR team. I'm not sure how we landed on this as the idea for Kevin James, but I watched all 10 episodes. Was it funny? Not necessarily. Did I watch it? Yeah, absolutely I did. Because when Kevin James is in something, K-Slow sits down and watch it.
How many times have you watched the entirety of King of Queens? I feel like we need to do an intervention
multiple
right
times.
now.
King of Queens is one of the funniest shows of all time. I get so annoyed that people throw shade at the King of Queens. It's up until the very end when Leah Remini starts having babies in real life and that character gets kind of weird. That is as good of a TV comedy as there's ever been. I mean, think about it. It's Kevin James at his peak, because it's kind of like, it's still young guy Kevin James. We don't get a lot of MMA-inspired Kevin James until the later seasons of King of Queens, which is a huge factor in how much I enjoy him, is whether or not he is within 48 hours of watching a UFC pay-per-view, which it seemed like for a while that was all he was doing. Kevin James, Jerry Stiller, Patton Oswalt, Victor Williams, Gary Valentine as Danny is funny in that show. Lou Ferrigno is tremendous in that show. That whole cast is killer. One of the best sitcoms of all time, and I get so annoyed that I have to defend the King of Queens towards other people.
You know, I think like the difference between you and me with like comedies, like my favorite show right now is What We Do in the Shadows. Like I'm a big Matt Berry guy.
Good show. Not as good as King of Queens. Good show. Not as good as King of Queens.
Have you seen Toast of London?
I have not.
Oh, you see, pull up the Netflix, and I like a farce comedy, and that is like 4 seasons, 4 British seasons, so it's like 20 episodes. You can watch it in a weekend, and it is I think it's some of the most like farcical and just hilarious things I've seen in a long time. Like you pull up The Crew, I pull up Toast of London. We are not the same.
Yeah, I went through a phase of watching really pretentious comedies, and to a degree, I still think there's value in those. But at some point, I was just like, you know what I like about a comedy is a show that's funny. And King of Queens checks those boxes. Because I was just talking to somebody about. Did you ever watch Mark Maron's show Maron?
I sat through a couple of seasons. I went through a couple of seasons of it.
I'm a huge fan because I think that I think it's 4 seasons. In the first 3, it's largely just Mark Maron material put up on its feet and acted out. That 4th season, they go through such a gut-wrenching story where Maron relapses and he's living in a storage locker, and Louis kind of tries to get Maron's career back on track, but then Maron screws him over. And it's a very somber season, and it's just very intriguing, and it's obviously labeled as a comedy because it's Mark Maron. And there was a point in time where that was sort of my favorite thing, of these comedies that made you think and that had these great, great amounts of depth to them. That's great. I don't really want to watch that now, though. I kind of just want to watch season 3 of King of Queens. That, to me, is what I'm constantly in the mood for at this point.
You see, I checked out of Maron after the episode that podcast host Seth Romatelli was on as his IT guy. That was it. I was good after that. I was like, oh yeah, Seth Romatelli from dude's on this show. I don't need to watch this anymore.
Well, I don't know how we got off on that, Mike. Would you like to talk about Sora Fujikawa?
Yeah, so this came out this morning. Sora Fujikawa has announced that he'll be leaving Dragongate at the end of October, and it seems like, and the impression is that he is leaving the wrestling industry. This does not seem like an OG Shiba where he's just leaving the company and will come back he'll come back into wrestling when he's better. At least in my impression, I haven't had a chance really to talk to a whole lot of people. You might have had more of an opportunity to do so, but this is like a shame and it's a bummer. I guess like my impression, and I'm not trying to like sound a little bit cold about this. He was someone that is older than the remainder of the class of 2020. Like Kakuta, SB Kento, and Kamei were all 20, turning 21 or 22. He was 25, so he's now 26. And having that kind of injury, and then going back into taking all that time back, especially like right now, and then going back into wrestling when you're 26, you see like the Ahashi Brothers, now everyone else in your class is main eventing shows. Like I could see how that could be very discouraging when you are moved back to essentially he was back in Future. They were going to re-debut him, and that was it. So, pardon me.
Props to you there. You played body language doctor, and you successfully diagnosed some discomfort there when you had mentioned that he looked kind of checked out of his Future matches. I thought that was a part of a greater deal where, I was just talking to somebody this past weekend. I was like, man, when Fujikawa comes back and he's on the main roster again, I really think he's going to hit the ground running. I think he's going to be a huge part of a unit going forward because, the weird thing is he wrestled 7 matches. He had that empty arena tag that I was talking about earlier in the show. It was Kabune and Kamei versus Kakuta and Fujikawa. That was his debut. He wrestled Don Fuji in Osaka. That match was awesome. He had a singles match against Diamante, which is one of the few Diamante singles matches in his time in this promotion, that next month in Osaka. And then he had that 8-man tag, Fuji, Doi, Kondo, and Susumu against the class of 2020. That's the last time we saw him on TV. And that's the match where afterwards they had to send out a release to the audience reminding them not to cheer for Sora Fujikawa because they were in the midst of COVID-19. And then the day after that match, Masaki Mochizuki wrestled him in a singles match, and Mochizuki, as we've talked about on the show, Mochizuki broke his face. There's a picture of it on, I think it's Mochizuki's Instagram, of that kick the moment he, again, exploded Fujikawa's face. And from a personal standpoint for Fujikawa, it just has to be devastating because, we spent 45 minutes opening up this show talking about how great SB Kento and Jacky Funky Kamei are. And I have no doubt that when Hip Hop Kakuta returns, he will pick up right where he left off. And Fujikawa, just because of, I think also just because of the nature of the 2020 schedule and how things were so tightly packed that back half of the year, we saw the other three rookies in that class of 2020, they all accelerated so quickly that maybe during a normal year, they wouldn't have had all of those opportunities to grow and to learn and to turn and develop characters. Maybe during a normal year, if Fujikawa missed all this time, the gap wouldn't have been as great between him and those other three guys. But this is the reality that we're living in. I think this is a huge loss just because he will always go down now as a what could have been, because I really thought in the limited times that we saw him that he projected a future star quality to him. And, we'll never even see him with a character. We'll never see him really out of young boy tights, which is just such a bummer.
Yeah, and this is like such a contrast to Katsumi Takashima, who was a part of another big class of 2016, the one that had Benkei, Shun Skywalker, Hyo, and Yuki Yoshioka in it, and he was a part of that big match. And pretty much right after that big match, like after that match, he retired. He was injured and he was retired. Like, this is someone that we got a sense of who he was, and we saw like that he had a legitimate connection that worked in Dragongate. That now we don't see it play out. And I just keep on going back to like how much of a bummer it would be, like given like all this, and you see Kento, you see Kamei, and you saw Kakuta. Like, Kakuta's the quickest, youngest man ever to get a Drinky. Like, that's something that you can never take away from Kakuta, even if things don't pan out for him, and you're on the sidelines. And also the fact that I don't think he was really staying in the dojo during most of this, and how isolating COVID has been for just humanity in general, but also imagine in such like an interwoven and tightly knit group as the Dragon Gate roster, being pretty much like you're part of it, you're part of it, you're part of it, and then you have to sit out for so long. And I it's totally understandable how someone might check out like that,
Yeah, it's a real bummer. Obviously, like I said earlier on the show, we knew not everybody was going to pan out to such a star-making degree in the class of 2020. It's disappointing that we're already seeing one of those guys fade to black and presumably end his career, because I would have liked to have seen what Fujikawa 2.0 would have looked like. I would have liked to have seen him get back on the main roster, and that just did not happen. So because of the schedule, these Fukuoka shows, this is the last time Dragon Gate will make tape this month. So I don't get it would be weird for him to wrestle a future match on those shows. But if he does, it's the last time we'll see him. But I have a feeling that's the last time we'll see Sora Fujikawa wrestle. We've already seen it.
Yeah, unless they would put up a previously taped future match that he was in, but I don't expect that really at this point, especially of how they treat the future stuff there. They kind of drop one in there as a treat. That's a match they probably can be like, you know what, he's gone. We don't need to really put this up, even if it's like someone like Sato or Fuda who they want to try to get exposure to. So I think we've seen his last match.
Yeah, and at the very least, like I said, he's got that empty arena tag, his debut match, that was during that soul-sucking period of that empty arena King of Gate. That match was so much fun. The Kabune Kamei versus Kakuta Fujikawa match, and then that 8-man tag, Fuji, Doi, Kondo, Susumu against Kabune, Kakuta, Fujikawa, and Kamei. That was one of those weeks where I was so excited to sit down with Mike and talk about that match. That's a match that I'll always remember, a historic match to some degree. And now, forgetting what SB Kento and Kakuta and Kamei will accomplish, it has a bit of added lore, dare I say, with Fujikawa being involved with it. And then so quickly after that, not being able to wrestle.
Yeah, I wanted to check to see when's the last time that a match of his made tape. It was last month's Kobe show on the 23rd. He had a future match with Takumi Hayakawa. So that's a trivia note, I guess, for people who want to know that. Case, you wanted to touch on the relaunch of Osaka Pro before we got out of here.
Yeah, so this is a story that broke earlier this week that All Japan Pro Wrestling Zeus is buying full control of Osaka Pro. His All Japan contract ends at the end of 2021, and he will take over running Osaka Pro on a full-time basis in the start of the new year. They are expected to launch again in the spring of 2022. Before I go any farther, I do want to mention that Isaac, that's Isaac with Z's from Puro in the Rough, has kind of killed this coverage. He's done a really good job. This is very much in his ballpark. Over on his website, purointherough.com, he has a huge write-up of kind of the history of Osaka Pro, why Zeus purchasing it is a big deal, and a look at who we can kind of expect to see, at least on launch date, guys that should be affiliated with this promotion. And then he and Striga, a friend of the show, one of the nicest men I've ever come in contact with, Striga of the Eastern Lariat podcast, they sat down today and did some audio talking about that same thing. And I listened to that episode. That was a very informative episode. When it comes to the Japanese indie scene, those are the two guys I trust. And I thought they had a lot of good information there. I think they were a little more bullish on the idea of Osaka Pro starting up again than I am. It was interesting. They mentioned, Zeus adds a certain level of credibility when this story broke. Guys like Akiyama and Marufuji were tweeting out their support, and you certainly wouldn't get that from just any other, Osaka-based businessman or even whoever's left of either the original Osaka Pro or some Michinoku guy that wanted to buy the promotion. Zeus, as much as I make fun of him because I find him to be a useless wrestler just because of the All Japan heavyweight scene and how much I dislike it for the most part, he does add a certain level of credibility as the owner of this promotion. My expectations for this are that these will largely be alumni shows that you'll see, Hubbo, Black Buffalo, whoever else is in there, Magnitude Kishiwada, Tsubasa, those kind of guys I think are going to dominate these shows. What would be great, my best case scenario for this, Mike, is that we see some new trainees come through the dojo system there. That would be phenomenal because Zeus owns a gym in Osaka, which I did not realize. Not a dojo, but a normal gym, and I would really like to see some young guys come through the pipeline there. But what are your thoughts on the 2022 relaunch of Osaka Pro?
I kind of look this as like a worst case scenario. It ends up being a regional indie like Kyushu Pro, Ryukyu Dragon, like how they kind of have.
I think that is an incredibly fair comp, and unless I hear otherwise, I think that is what Zeus is going for as well. I think he's looking to be a kingpin in that part of the country in the same way that Garukin Mask is.
Yeah, so I think that in that role, it's just really hard for like what Osaka Pro was at its peak for what it could be now. And I think that as long as there's like a level of just realistic expectations with it, I think that it definitely Karzanish, there's all those Osaka Pro guys that just whenever a company comes into that part of the region, the Kansai region, which is the same region that Dragongate's a part of, but like whenever they go to Osaka, you would see like Billy King Kid, Tsubasa, Magnitude Kishiwada pop up on these shows. It's going to be interesting because like if they keep like this, because I have this article pulled up right now too, and looking at the names that Isaac has picked up there, almost all of them like line up perfectly well with what you'd expect, out of your Osaka Pro veterans coming back there. It's going to be interesting to see like how, like you mentioned, like if they create a dojo system there. I mean, a lot of the people who did the training for the original Osaka Pro aren't a part of this, and also the fact that like Osaka has a lot of like I don't want to call them micro indies because they do draw decently well, but like this isn't like one of the many Osaka. This is like one of many various Osaka area promotions that have popped up. There's Kuga, who has Dotonbori Poro. There's Osaka Style Wrestling Gamma, was promoting shows under like an Osaka banner for a while as well. So I mean, this is like the one market that could definitely have a just like a region specific indie like Kyushu Pro, like Ryukyu Dragon. It's just something that like this is a market that like there's always been like a kind of Osaka promotion going on there. It's just if it's going to be just Osaka Pro guys, it's going to draw pretty well for Osaka Pro, even considering how Osaka Pro ended or had took its massive step backs at. It's going to be like, all right, what are you going to add to it? Are you going to have new stars? Like there's people like the name that has been thrown around a lot is Shigehiro Irie, who was a huge Osaka Pro fan, was I believe Osaka based, and he's a part of All Japan. He's a part of Strong Hearts, but he's a freelancer. Like this could end up being a home promotion that makes sense for him, as it seems more and more that Strong Hearts are going to be just a GLEAT thing, you know? So that would be a name to look at. And then it's just other like Osaka regional guys. Like if Gamma pops up here, a good deal, I would not be surprised at all because he lives in Osaka.
Yeah, I sent Mike a message last night, joking, before I even realized that Irie was from Osaka. I said, man, pencil this in as Irie's new home promotion. He will easily be the ace of Osaka Pro. Mike was like, well, you know he's from Osaka. I was like, oh my God, even better. Like this guy is, whatever the first tournament they run is, Irie is clearly going to win that tournament. I do think, and it's hard to speculate, I don't have any information, maybe because you're a little bit more connected to this, maybe you have thoughts on this more than just, oh, that's an interesting thought. I do think one of the most interesting outcomes of a new Osaka Pro is whether they partner with Dragongate to some degree, or whether they partner with Strong Hearts to some degree, because obviously you have Zeus, which means you have an All Japan connection, and right now Strong Hearts are doing big things in All Japan. Now, you know, that's something, again, I would have been pretty excited about that 2 years ago. Now, I gotta be honest, I don't care. But you obviously have that connection there, but then you have Gamma and all of the other Osaka connections in Dragon Gate. It seems like, just given the Cosmo situation that we got into recently, where it's really going to be one or the other. You can't play to both sides there. And I'm really curious to see if Dragon Gate can stake their claim in an Osaka indie in the same way that they've done with Ryukyu Pro and with Kyushu Pro. If this can be a third indie that once a month they can send 2 or 3 guys to spread the word of the promotion again, or if Shima's going to be on the first show and then T-Hawk and Lindemann will follow, and we know how that goes.
Yeah, and if I were to guess, just looking at the roster and the people around there, I would think, and this is, I have not done any talking to people. I haven't, other than the stuff like me seeing the tweet and us talking case, I haven't done a whole lot of work looking into this. Just on its surface, especially seeing that like Kaliga Pro pretty much has flamed out, I think that the fact that like Bodyguard's there, Bodyguard has a good established relationship with Dragon Gate, and if Zeus is there, then Bodyguard will be there as well. And like Matu Kishawada, you know, like it makes a lot of sense for Dragon Gate to kind of line up there, and especially with like being the big promotion in Western Japan, and I've already supported Western Japanese micro indies, it would make sense there. But I mean, as you're saying, like all it takes is how much Zeus is going to open up the checkbook, and then that's it. You know, I mean, like that's the thing. Like you were dead on about that. I look at this and as like a positive thing. I mean, we've seen how GLEAT has been able to, I don't want to say thrive because you can't really judge that yet, but has found a niche for itself that, just like looking at Osaka, especially like the idea of what an Osaka Pro means, I think is a big deal. And I think that's just an overall just positive. And hopefully, you know, even if Dragon Gate doesn't become affiliated with them and they're not having a relationship with them, it's a positive sign. Like whenever there's wrestling in Japan, there should be an Osaka Pro, basically. And the fact that we've been so long without a true Osaka Pro, the fact that it's coming back is a unqualified positive in my mind.
I've talked a lot on this show about how I'm really disappointed there's not a lower level junior based promotion in Japan right now. I think overall, this is the weakest the Japanese junior scene has been since probably the start of 1990. I think the junior divisions in Japan are really dire right now. But if we can have a place where, again, your Hubos and Ultimate Spider Juniors and whoever else can work consistently, and hopefully it's either on YouTube or in some easily consumable way for Western fans, I think that's a very good thing. And more power to Zeus. I mean, this is a cool thing. He grew up in this part of the country. He grew up in Osaka Pro. He made money in All Japan, and now he's going back and buying his home promotion. That's a nice story. So good for Zeus. I wish him well. And if there's any sort of Dragon System affiliation with Osaka Pro going forward, it's something I'd like to talk about on this show.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said up top, this is all part of the same family tree, just a branch that branched off a lot earlier than Dragongate. So it's something that I will keep an eye on, and at the very least, I want to see the first Osaka Pro show in 2022. Like, I'm fascinated by what this could be, and hopefully it's easily available.
Absolutely.
And unless you have anything else, we almost went 2 hours. I think we can call it a show here.
That is all I have to say. Go watch that Open the Brave Gate match between SB Kento and now Jacky Funky Kamei. That match put me in a very good mood. That match made my weekend. Go watch it, and God bless.
Yep, that's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next week talking about the end of October in Dragongate. As Case mentioned, the Fukuoka shows next Sunday are the last Dragongate shows for the month. And then I think they have like one televised show before Gate of Destiny, but that's clearly on the horizon here. But you can follow the podcast at Open Voice Gate. You can follow Case at _in your case. And you can follow me at Fujiwara, all on Twitter. If you'd like to support the show, go to HelloFresh.com/VOW14 and use promo code 14 for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. But that's going to do it for this week on Open the Voice Gate. Take care.